So this video covers the survey analysis tool. This tool allows a researcher to import their survey, map responses of that survey or their questions to ordinal values if needed, group respondents to clusters according to their answers, and to analyze the differences between these groups once they've been uh, grouped via k-means or Gaussian mixed model. We start by importing a CSV file, which the survey question codes as the top or the first row of the file, and we'll see that here in a second. And the respondents' IDs in the leftmost column of the file for each respondent, and the responses for each question and respondent in the actual table itself. So again, we'll see that here in a second. Matter of fact, let's just go ahead and do that real quick. So I'll bring up a particular survey. So once the data is in the tool, there's probably the most difficult thing is to map responses, and so we'll see that here in a second. But basically, what I said earlier was a code for the question up at the top row, and the respondents, all of the respondents, basically being a particular row in this table. So, for example, respondent 8, respondent 12, respondent 13, and so on and so forth. And then you can look at at the actual like file itself inside the tool. You can see this at the very beginning here. And if you've already mapped, like I said, the hardest thing to do is to map these questions or each question to an ordinal value. And let's go ahead and do that right now. So, for example, in this particular case, this thing did it pretty good, right? So, what it happens is the tool assumes that all of your questions are ordinal. I'm sorry, are categorical in nature instead of ordinal. Ordinal is a more powerful way to analyze the data. So that's the one that we would rather have. And so, if your data is something that's ordinal, such as like how old are you, right? That matters. Like one is younger than 5, which is younger than 10, and so on and so forth. There's some sort of order to your question. Then you can go in and you can map those questions to values, and they don't necessarily have to come up to a number, but you basically need to put them in some sort of order. So in this case, 0, not at all. Being mapped to a 0 is a good thing. And so we're going to go ahead and say that this particular question or these set of questions, because these are the set of questions that have exactly that same response. So WH aerobics, that means something. That's a code for a particular question. WH walking is another question that has these same responses. And so what the tool does is it grabs all of the questions, looks at all the responses, and then puts all those questions that have these exact responses in a group together. And that's what you're doing when you're mapping. Again, this is the most difficult part. And once this is done, we can save it. And so let's just go to the next one. So this one may or may not, it probably is not mapped correctly. So you can see a few times, none. So this is sort of, and right now it says it's ordinal, but it's probably because we just clicked on ordinal the time before. But this is an ordinal question. So none would probably be probably mapped to 0. A few times, probably a little bit higher, and you got to kind of get this thing in order. So rarely probably is the next one. A few times is 2, often is probably 3, and very often is 4. And then you hit record. And if you change this, you either can change this or you can change this, and it'll come back and put it in the order that it is. So none is, and then you can kind of see if it makes sense. So none, rarely, a few times, often, very often, and hit record. So just make sure that you record that. And then you just got to do this for all of the different question variants or response variances. For example, this would be the next one, and you'd have to go through and do the same sort of process. Now, once you've done this, once you've done sort of the hardest thing to do, you can save your mapping. And right, so that at this point, you would want to type in some file name .pickle, PKL, and then hit save, and then it would save it somewhere on your hard drive so that you could then come back and use it later. And it's going to be the same place that you imported your survey from. Okay, fortunately for us, I already have a mapping, and so I'm just going to go ahead and grab that mapping. So I just did this. You can see the same date as today. And then we can look at our responses, and then hopefully they are the ones that we think they should be. So this one already made sense earlier. It's ordinal a few times. So this one already sort of makes sense as well. And you can just go through and so let's look at this one. This one would probably not extremely easy, very easy, easy, moderate, hard, and very hard, and extremely hard. Okay, so all of that makes sense. I think I've done this one already, and you can see this one, this set of responses are mapped to only one question in this particular case. All right, that's really all I have for this video, at least starting off. And we're going to talk about what these other things do in subsequent videos.